Andie Kramer and I are here today to talk about our new treatise. And before we get into it, I wanted to give we wanted to give an introduction of ourselves here. And I'll go first. I'm going to introduce Andie. It's far more difficult to introduce Andie than for me to introduce myself, but I'm up to the task, Andie, and I'm going to try. Andie has a long and illustrious career of advising clients in the energy and renewable industries on both the regulated and unregulated sides. And her clients include some of the world's largest power producers, refineries, and trading firms. In addition to this, she has real expertise in advising clients on financial products matters, encompassing their taxation, regulation, and design. Andie is the founding member of the boutique Chicago firm ASKramer Law. Prior to founding ASKramer Law, Andie was an equity partner at McDermott, Will & Emery. And Andie and I first met when she was teaching as an adjunct professor at Northwestern University's School of Law in their LLM taxation program, I think about 13 or 14 years ago, Andie.
And that's probably a good way for me to then introduce Nick, which is that's how we met. And I taught derivatives law and derivatives tax at Northwestern's law school and the LLM program for about 20 years. And I can say that Nick Mowbray was actually the best student that I ever had. And so obviously that's shaped my interest in collaborating with Nick over the years. We've been co-authors of a book on financial products, tax, regulation, and design, and this new book on energy and environmental project finance. He's a partner at Baker Hostetler, resident in the DC office, and he focuses his practice on energy and environmental markets, energy transactions, energy tax credits, and financial products. Nick works with his clients on all of the issues that I've just mentioned, but also focuses on the Inflation Reduction Act and the tax credits that are involved there. That's been a very big issue, but he advises his clients on renewables, and he spent some time advocating before the Treasury and the IRS, especially with respect to guidance and what are we going to see about interpreting the tax rules and the changes that we're seeing in the energy and environmental area.
Why don't we talk a little bit, Andie, about the book and how this came together, what led up to you producing this, how it began, and just the process as a whole.
Well, this book is now LexisNexis is the publisher. I think it's they bought the topic from the title from Oxford University Press. And so about 15 years ago, I did an edition of this book, same name, but totally different book, where this is an outgrowth of the topics that were presented then with a 2025 look on it. And so it looks at both the traditional energy projects and contracts, cutting edge energy and environmental projects. And what we've done is we've turned it into an annual book. It's got a very broad focus. And so people can either read it from front to back, from back to front. They could pick a chapter that's of interest. So it's really designed to be read any way anybody wants to access it. Very broad focus, including legal and regulatory, finance, bankruptcy, lots in contract terms for both traditional types of energy deals as well as the unique and evolving environmental transactions. Some information about some standard forms. We've got force majeure provisions, which are very important in these deals, and go into those in some depth. The RECs and the carbon credits, tax hedging, and of course the tax credits that we've seen. And so that's really what the book is all about. And so I guess, Nick, maybe you might want to answer what you thought the hardest part of putting the book together was.
Yeah, so that's a great overview of the book, and and how great it is and everything's in it. And you know, I think what I'd say is given everything you just said it covered, for me, I thought, Andie, the hardest part of putting this together, and you know, with all 37 of our chapters, it was really trying to summarize this and to try to tie all this together, because it's such a unique book in its breadth and its depth. And so how do you weave all of this together when you're talking about financial considerations, bankruptcy, regulation, taxation, form agreements? But lucky for us, you know, I think, and we'll get into it here, a number of our chapters here, a lot of them are from our great contributors who really wrote strong chapters, and we were able to in the editing process, you know, revising and looking at everything they did and coming up with a really great introduction to the book. I saw the short answer is it's the introduction to the book in chapter 1 that I thought were the hardest, because you know you have all these different disciplines in here, and then you add to it the ever-changing landscape of this, and I thought that was the most challenging.
I agree with you. I think that the only thing that I would add to that is that with the world changing and moving as quickly as it has, it was a challenge to make sure that we were focusing on what was happening now and anticipating what might be happening in the future, knowing that we're going to have a new version out later this year. And so, I guess we're responsible for getting it to the publisher later this year. It'll be out early next year. So I think that with the IRA being a game changer, and now with the new administration and the new legislation, there's going to be a lot that we're going to need to be talking about in the new edition, as well as what we've got already in the 2025 version.
Definitely. And I think why don't we kind of give some shout outs to some of the sections here, so our viewers here could get a little bit of a preview of what we have in store for them with this book. And you know, you mentioned some of our contributors. This is the first interview we're going to do, or discussion we're going to do, where Andie and I give a preview of the book, but we're also going to have separate discussions with some of the contributors over the coming weeks and months, and we can briefly mention that as we give some of the shout outs here, I think, Andie.
Yep, I think that's terrific. We were really very lucky to have a really impressive list of contributors. They're all subject matter experts, internationally recognized lawyers, as well as academics, business people, and they're all across the United States as well as in Canada. And so, in sort of a order, but in no particular order, because we're going to jumble it around here, what I'd like to start with is Jeremy Weinstein, who has his own law firm, has written a number of chapters in this book, as well as in the very first iteration of it 15 years ago. He's got chapters on Dodd-Frank and renewables. He's got some information on RECs and other products. And so he's got a lot of information, very talented guy. The next is Nathan Coco and Aaron Williams, who have a chapter on financial distress in project finance, very important issues, and bankruptcy and insolvency. And he's a recidivist as well. He was a contributor to the first iteration. And a new kid on the block is Jason Lewis, who did a field guide to the offtake agreements. Very, very extensive, detailed, and interesting.
Yeah, and I'll add to that Glenn Benson, a partner of mine at Baker and Hostetler, contributed a phenomenal chapter on interconnection agreements and transmission, which is always a really important regulatory aspect of these projects. In addition to this, we have several chapters, and this really highlights the uniqueness of this book, how diverse it is in what it covers. We have several chapters by Andie, Jeremy Weinstein, and James Bordignon on project finance, renewable energy certificates, which I think Andie mentioned, trading electricity, and hedging strategies, which really covers the capital market aspects of the energy industry and makes this a unique book because it puts that together with all the regulatory areas.
I think that leads me to sort of the next shout out to Sam Kramer and Richard Sains, who did a very interesting chapter in the first iteration and really interesting chapter here about the secured financing and what's the legal nature of these credits. Very interesting and important chapter, as well as another chapter that Sam was involved in as well.
And we also have a chapter just on debt and debt considerations with respect to energy projects by Mark Reisler, which is, that's an issue really at the forefront of many investment tax credits due to the recapture rules and things like that. But that's also I thought that was a great addition, and it sits right in the middle of the book. So it's a nice, right in the middle of everything. It's nice.
And thinking about sort of the front part of the book, Craig Enoch from Reed Smith was involved in the first book, and he's involved in this one as well. And I believe we're interviewing Craig as one of our interviews. I know we're interviewing Jeremy and others. Sam and Richard are going to be interviewed as well. And so if we jump over to the tax chapters, some of them, to highlight a few, we've got Heather Cooper, and she's at McDermott, Will and Schulte, the brand new McDermott, Will and Schulte. And she had a really outstanding chapter on the beginning of construction, and she'll be one of the topics that we will be having one of these discussions with. Marty Pugh, my former partner of mine's involved in a number of the chapters. Nathan Carrier and Nathan Howe have a chapter on hydrogen. It's going to be very interesting to see what they have to say with the new legislation for next year's edition, and very extensive sort of life cycle of solar energy transactions, which Charles Purcell and several of his colleagues, including Mary Baker and Dirk Michaels, Wan Han Chang, and Darcy Christopher are involved in. A really interesting chapter. And it really does go through the whole life cycle of tax credit structuring for solar deals.
And another one I want to highlight, which again, I think shows how unique and diverse this book is it's a chapter on insuring renewable energy credits with contributions from Justin Pierce Buritich, Cami LaBerge, and Kyle Ryder. That's a really unique topic. It's and tax credit transfer deals. It's always a hot area of getting insurance on it, and even not if just a claimer of the credits. I have clients that just want insurance for the sake of having the security of it, and that's sort of a budding and growing market. So they have a great chapter on considerations for insuring renewable energy credits, and Justin and I will be doing an interview where I'll discuss that with him, as well as with Heather Cooper. Andie previously mentioned Heather Cooper has a beginning of construction chapter, which is right now at the forefront of all the solar and wind deals because of the new One Big Beautiful Bill Act, what it did with respect to beginning of construction, creating a little bit of a safe harbor, and now the administration trying to claw that back. And I think, Andie, I think we should pat ourselves a little bit on the back here too, because in addition to our great contributors and what they've added, you and I actually wrote a lot of these chapters too. So we should pat ourselves, or I'll pat you on the back and you pat me on the back.
Okay, yeah. Well, it was a lot of fun working together on it, Nick. It's always fun working with you. And one thing that this leads me to is for people who are picking up the book, and why should you pick it up? Well, one of the things is that if you have questions, if you're thinking about doing a deal, you could get answers, or at least you could get information to help you get answers to ownership issues and technology issues, the environment. What about suppliers? Very big issue now. Documentation, insurance, taxation, finance. I mean, we can answer unique, specific questions that you might not even think about just by looking at the title of the book.
Yeah, and I think the introduction really hits on it. Not to turn back to it, but it was so hard to write because this book just has so much in it. And at the time we published it, there was also so much uncertainty regarding the Inflation Reduction Act and just the overall commitment of the U.S. to renewable energy and greenhouse gas reductions. But that's not to say that the book is just about renewables. It's a lot more than that. It covers traditional energy projects. And like Andie said, it educates the reader on regulatory issues, financing techniques, tax considerations. And, we're really proud of it, and we're grateful for our contributors who, as Andie said in the lead in, are internationally recognized attorneys, academics, business people that have provided their insight to the readers. It's really invaluable. And to have that all in one place where it's not something from here, something from there, it's all in one book. It's really phenomenal. And as we previously noted, the regulatory and financial landscape on energy law is changing. And this is going to be a book we update on an annual basis to reflect that. So over the course of the next few months, we're going to have, as we mentioned, some interviews of some of our contributors to discuss their related chapters. And we'll eventually close with another, probably, I think, around December, Andie, with a discussion between Andie and I, where we can then report back to you about how our updates have gone and what to expect in next year's edition. So
And
stay
where the
tuned.
world's moved, and where the world's moved between now and then.
Yeah, if I could predict that now, that would be really special. But unfortunately, I cannot. But yeah, stay tuned. We're really excited.
And if I could just close with a special thanks to LexisNexis. They really were persistent in urging us to do this book. We were originally somewhat reluctant to take it on because it was such a big project. But they convinced us that it was the right thing to do. And I think at this point, Nick and I would agree that it is. And special thanks to Sarah, who's been our marketing person and helping us through this, and Josh, who's making these videos possible. And so with that, thank you very much, and happy reading.